All right. Well, good morning, Mike. Mike Gruley with 1Vision Advisors. It's our privilege to be together today. Lisa Goyette and myself, John Ball, are owners of CH Training and Coaching. And amongst a number of things that we do, our primary initiative is to create healthy and productive and engaging work environments. And that's needed more now than ever. And so we are just grateful for the opportunity to have you join us this morning, Mike.
Really great to be here, John. The work you and Lisa do is so important to any organization, especially nowadays. So I appreciate the work you do. I'm glad to be part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Lisa's going to share a little bit about how we got to this point and why we're working on this particular initiative.
Okay.
So our view of how corporate America should look is that emotional and social intelligence should be the DNA of any organization. And without it, that's when serious problems creep in. So all the work that we do always is looking through a lens of how do we go into an environment, any environment for that matter, and create socially and emotionally intelligent men and women. And how do we grow them in the skill sets that they currently possess that show us that they get what it means to be socially and emotionally intelligent, and bring them to the next level. So we're always looking at how do we keep growth going continually. So in the world of social emotional intelligence, there's 26 different competencies that are believed to be mandatory to make someone well-rounded. And the one that we're going to be talking with you about today, Mike, is inspirational leadership. And I'm just going to read really quickly what that means so everyone has a brief understanding of what that is. Inspirational leadership is being able to inspire, to guide, to mobilize individuals and groups by giving them a clear, compelling, and motivating vision for the future. So that's what we're going to be chatting with you about, and how you create inspirational leadership in your work environment.
So before we do that, in all fairness to those who are watching, I just wanted to kind of give some background on you, Mike, so that people know where you've come from and the work that you do. Mike, of course, is the founder of 1Vision Advisors, LLC. He is a lifelong entrepreneur that has successfully built several businesses from startup to a national scale. Over the past 3 decades, Mike has contributed to several businesses and organizations, both national and international, as an owner, a board member, or an advisor. He has published and interviewed in various media outlets on industry topics and is also a public speaker. Mike is the founder of 1Vision Advisors, LLC. He's a leadership team guide and EOS implementer. So that's your most recent work. And he works with privately owned businesses whose owners and leaders are successful and growth-oriented, but frustrated. Frustrated that their success has created a level of complexity and chaos that is slowly or stalling their growth, limiting their profits, and generally making life less fun. We love to hear that word, because fun, if life isn't fun, there's definitely some concerns in that realm. He helps business leaders when they feel stuck in the weeds and can't seem to get traction that they had originally envisioned. So having used EOS himself years ago to get unstuck in his own companies, Mike now assists successful business owners and their leadership teams to get unstuck by helping them implement a simple, proven organizing framework that enables them to get clarity and alignment to go from chaos to control and to run their business again instead of it running them. And I'll also add, apart from your bio that you shared with us, one of the things that I value about you, Mike, is that you are authentic. You have core values that exhibit tremendous ethics and values, and we appreciate really the heart of what you hold in terms of helping people, really at the core of who you are. So with that, let's jump in and talk a little bit about inspirational leadership and what that means for you.
Sounds great. You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well,
so
Lisa
one of
did-
those 26 competencies, of course, that we're going to be covering is inspirational leadership,
all
and
right.
this is the one that that is on the docket for today that has really hit your heart.
Awesome. Well, yeah, this one, I'm a big fan of inspirational leadership because I've always been a John Maxwell fan. If you've ever read his books, the first one was the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And he has one all-encompassing quote that he always says, which is everything rises and falls on leadership. And I really believe that, whether it be a business, a church, an organization, a family, leadership is so important. It's the thing that drives everything in this world. And of course, bad leadership can drive it in a bad place too. So, but often I'm asked the question, well, what's the difference? A leader, a leader's a leader, they're kind of leaders, managers, you're just making the trains run on time. Well, I think those are just two different things, leadership and management. I think we all know they're very different things. Management is just managing things and schedules, more process and goal oriented. Nothing wrong with that. You have to have management. But leadership comes from a different place. Real leadership comes from a place in the heart, a place in the mind, a place with our passions and our commitments, and it becomes contagious. And great leaders have that ability to communicate in a way that they share this passion, they share this commitment, they share this vision they have, and others just say, man, I want to be part of it. What can I do, John? What can I do, Lisa? How do I get involved? And that's where I think inspirational leadership really, that's the nexus of it, where it starts, and from there it just takes off.
So talk to us a little bit, Mike. Of course, Lisa and I have been spending a whole lot of time since COVID in March with the crisis that has hit businesses. So can you share a little bit about how really inspirational leadership can impact the times that we're living and moving through, being that they're so unconventional? For
sure, John. It's probably, and I think Lisa said this at the very beginning, it's been more important now than ever. Some of the things that we've seen leaders of companies do, obviously COVID hit, no one expected it, and rightfully so, it was devastating to some people. And there's this feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't need this. And what if we go away, blah, blah, those things you're a human being, they go through your mind. But at some point we have to create some sort of sense of calm and clarity. And I think great inspirational leaders find ways to realign their vision, get clarity with it. So it's absolutely clear to them, right? So if it's not clear to me, how am I going to communicate to you? And then communicate that and communicate it over and over and over. And I think if there's one thing that leaders must do is be clear. If anything else, they must be clear. And if they're clear, well, then at least you know who's in and who's out, right? So when your business gets this kind of a hit, okay, take a couple of days, grieve it maybe, try to figure it out, sort it out. It's painful, but there's always, where a door closes, the window opens. Find that open window. Make sure it's clear to you. Make sure it's a window you want to go through. You're still passionate about it. And then you share it with everyone else and say, guess what I found? I found an open window. And wait till you see this. Come follow me. I have this place I want to go, and I'd love for you to go with me. Let's go on this journey together. That's great leadership, even in the face of crisis.
Mike, can you expand on how an inspirational leader communicates that? When we talk about communication, that means something to us. But what do you see that means to an inspirational leader? How is that vision communicated?
That's such a great question, Lisa, because, we could be great speakers or great orators and all of that. But, when you look at all the great leaders, let's take Martin Luther King Jr., okay? great speaker, no doubt. Very, very, very great speaker. But I don't think people followed him because, man, he was a great speaker. I think people followed him because his passion oozed out of him, obviously. You knew what he stood for and how he was going to go about it, too, peacefully. And it was very clear. It was very clear. I mean, it was in his mannerisms. It was in the way he walked and the way he talked and in his messaging. Obviously, it helped that he was a great speaker. But I would even argue even if he were a crummy speaker, he would have still been Martin Luther King Jr. because I think people tend to follow the passions and the commitments that you have and the ethics that you have more than even how you say it. And so when you say, how do you communicate it? In some ways, I think it's when we think of communication, we think of written words and spoken words and maybe even a song. But I think in a lot of ways, it's our why that is evident to everybody else. And I think that communicates more loudly than even the words we say.
I love the example that you used of Martin Luther King, and I love the word that you selected of passion, because people are very perceptive about knowing if they are working underneath a manager or an inspirational leader, right? And so when you use words like passion, yeah, if a leader is not passionate about where they're taking the organization and about the people that are part of the fabric of the organization, people are going to come in and punch the clock and do their job, but they're not going to be invested, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I love that word.
Thank you. Yeah, having that mission that you are communicating, even by your actions or your words or the facial expressions you give in every meeting, it could be something nonverbal. It's really telling people, get on board and come with me. This is where, and here's the good part. It doesn't always guarantee everyone wants to come with you, right? But the good part is, if I don't want to come with you, I can see it all over your faces. You're going in this place and you love it. I admire you and respect you for the passion that you have for where you want to go. But it's not where I want to go. So the beautiful part is that I respect you. I love you. I'm going to go in another direction. Great for me and really great for you, because you don't want people on your team that are going, I don't know. We all don't have the same passions and the same. So it really helps in that alignment when it's very clear and it's communicated clearly. How can you not get the right people on your team?
Yeah.
I've had the privilege, of course, to get to know you pretty well based upon our relationship that has developed, Mike, over the last year. And one of the things that I have come to appreciate about you is how you led in the mortgage industry, and some of the stories that you shared of what made you different than some of your competitors. And I'm going to hit it at the heart is this very conversation is the humanization of valuing your people that worked for you. I want to change that, not worked for you, but worked with you. Traditionally we would call them employees, but your team that came on board. So I want to go back to what we're going through right now with COVID and the impact that it's had and the level of influence that you are having through your current business as an EOS implementer. What are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of valuable traits, necessary traits, in order to help organizations thrive during these times based upon inspirational leadership? Especially taking into consideration the fact that there are people that are a part of those organizations that have lives, families, experiences, and challenges that it's not compartmentalized. As Lisa and I talk about, we don't leave our house and put on one hat and become an employee, and then we leave and go home, and then we become, a family member. All of it's very organic and drawn together. So could you address some of that stuff?
Yeah, another great question. And it can be complicated, I think, when in running a business, because there's this tendency to say, well, I'm and these are phrases, the terms I don't like to use, but I'm the boss at work, but at home I'm a different guy. And I don't know, if you're going to spend 8 to 10 hours every day working in a business, that's a big chunk of your life. How can it be someone you're not? So I think that when we are at our work or in our organizations, I think we should be our genuine selves. There is work to be done, and sometimes we have to make tough decisions. That's the job of the leader, but to also have compassion. There has to be some level of compassion in all leaders. And it doesn't mean you can't make tough decisions. It doesn't mean you can't be judgmental. It doesn't mean you can't do the things you have to do to run a business. I always tell my clients, I said, this isn't about necessarily profits. This isn't about just growing our business just so we can puff our chest out and say we have a great business. This is about building a business that's going to support our children and our grandchildren, and not just our children and grandchildren, but our team members' children and grandchildren, and our vendors' children and grandchildren, and our clients' children and grandchildren, and everyone who touches us or we touch. Think of their children. That's what we're doing. And so why would we not create an environment where we all care about this business, which is just a thing? 100 years from now, it might not even be around. Why don't we nurture that thing so it helps us and our friends and our families and all these people, so they all are great, they all are healthy and happy. And so when you go in with that mindset, at least from my way of thinking, it makes even the tough decisions easier, because everyone gets the why of why we do what we do. And so when they get the why, even when I have to get bad news from somebody, I can say, that's really bad news, but I sure do understand. It makes sense. So I don't know if I answered your question. I get on a tangent, and that's how I go.
No, you did, and a lot of it has to do with the fact, and there's some harmony in the things that Lisa and I talk about and how we approach businesses. And what you shared is that it really is countercultural to think about in the ways in which we're having this conversation this morning. Businesses exist, of course, to make money, but the larger umbrella in terms of this conversation is thinking in terms of the humanization of the work environment and the impact that it has therein.
Well, I'll tell you, some people might listen to this and say, that's a bunch of hooey. And I can respect that. But I can tell you this, companies that embrace what we're talking about are exceptional. So facts be damned, if you can go any way you want to go with your business or your organization or your church or your family, we're just groups of people, communities of people trying to achieve certain outcomes. But when you implement a certain amount of caring into it, it's amazing what happens. And I've experienced it, both sides. I've done it wrong, I've done it right. And when I've done this right, and usually it's mostly because I stumbled into it or just accidentally made the right decisions, I found that I had such a cohesive team, such a fine group of people. We got places that I never thought we would get. We did it, we were happy. We loved each other. And even though I don't work with them every day now, we're all like best friends. We still see our family. I know all their kids, and I'm like Uncle Mike and that sort of thing. What a beautiful thing. And we didn't have to go through all that other stuff. We got where we were going. And that was probably the most successful teams I've ever had, or ones were like that. So people that say this is hooey, I say, not,
You keep using qualities that just draw me in, Mike. And when you talk about compassion in the workplace as a leader, that is something that, my gosh, it makes someone really well-rounded, right? Because we know that they have to have the intellect side of it down. There has to be that in place to be able to understand the business aspect of it. But people also need to know that they're cared about.
Yes.
So when you start putting, I always think of, I'm a visual thinker, so I think about putting puzzle pieces together. So I'm thinking about you as an inspirational leader, and and using some of the words that you've already used, you know, you have to be passionate, you have to be compassionate. Those are things. You have to be clear, you know, you have to be a leader, not a manager. I can just see your puzzle just forming together on why, you know, if I worked for you, why would I would want to be a part of your team, because it's the well-roundedness that draws me in, and the balance that I think is always needed with leaders that make me want to work for someone, just knowing that this person cares about who I am. I'm not just a title that earns a paycheck every other week. So yeah, you're really just drawing me in with the terms that you're using and the qualities that I think are just absolutely critical, especially with what we are going through now. And truly, I think, you know, the shift in, Mike, you've probably seen this too, but the shift over the last couple decades, really coming out of the 80s, where leadership was very authoritarian.
Authoritarian?
Thank you. And you know, this is what I say, and you're going to do it, and here's the deadline, and
Yes.
don't give me any, you know, lip. I just want it done. Where, you know, they ruled by fear and intimidation, right? So, you know, I think there's been a movement, and tell me if you agree, that especially in the last decade, where inspirational leaders are really becoming the ones that are revered and respected.
Well, you know, as I said earlier, you know, we can disagree with all this, you know, but the facts are showing, the results show that people, leaders who do care, leaders who do make the extra effort, genuinely care, not act like they care. That's a big difference.
Yep.
Well said.
They produce better results. They have lower turnover. They have, you know, hey, look, parents that care usually have kids that turn out better. I mean, you know, not every time. Sometimes parents don't care at all and kids are great. Sometimes you have the most loving parents and things go sideways. But generally speaking, when you care about other people, you know, when you care about your spouse and she cares about you, you have a great marriage, hopefully. It's just about putting in the time and effort and humanizing it. Again, there's always going to be people that say, that's a bunch of hooey. But there's just too much, knowledge and information and thought that proves otherwise. Patrick Lencioni has talks a lot about team health, and I'm sure you're familiar with Patrick's stuff. But you know, one of the basic foundations of, you know, team health is trust. And you know, if you're going to beat me over the head every day and say, look, just do your job, I sign your paychecks, you know, shut up, I don't want to hear anything.
Yep.
That doesn't foster much trust. Now, I may do it because I have to, but I don't know how you grow that. How do you scale that? You know, great inspirational leaders create more leaders. So if you're a great inspirational leader, I jump on, I figure out, man, you guys are great. I love this. I'm inspired. I only get more inspired as I work with you. Next thing you know, I've become somewhat of a clone of you in the sense that I believe this great vision. And now I'm the sunshine boy. And now your company can grow because I'm another person that is spreading that same sunshine, that same vision, that same passion and commitment and compassion that you are. That's how great companies grow. I'm sorry, but that's just how the results are in. We see this in companies all the time. Hard part is getting people to believe it sometimes because they think, well, you know, that's too hard. It's a lot of work and it's going to take a while. Yeah, well, it takes a while to build a great business.
So do you think that someone could be taught to be an inspirational leader?
That's a great question.
Yes, I think we can learn to be inspirational leaders, but I think it comes from a different place. It doesn't come from it doesn't start by coming from a book or someone, you know, giving me bullet points on how I have to act. That wouldn't be very genuine. It really has to come from a place of passion and belief. And so I think we'll find that when we look at real, true inspirational leaders, they didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I think I'll just go out there and get really famous talking about civil rights. It's a hot issue right now. it's a really hot issue, and I'll bet you lots of people will want to hear me talk. And I'm a good talker too, right? It just didn't happen that way. I mean, Martin Luther King would have stood in front of an audience of one and given the same passionate speech, and he would have done it the next day in front of another audience of one. So we start with our passions. We start with a place that's so damn important to us, that we so believe in and we're so committed to, that we don't care who's listening. What happens, though, is that we become that inspirational leader. So my advice, if someone says, I'd really like to be an inspirational leader, I say, what are you passionate about? And find out. And if it doesn't make a lot of money, that's okay. Inspirational leaders are everywhere. They're in churches. They're in soup kitchens. They're in big boards of big companies. They're all over the place. It's just not about money and all that. It's just about how you motivate people to follow on a journey towards something that's great.
I love that. And as we draw our time to a close, Mike, with yourself and Lisa and I, we're looking forward to this next year as we find ways of being able to work together as inspirational leaders, the three of us, and really make a difference in the lives of human beings and in the organizations that we're serving. And so I wanted to just share, if you'd like more information on Mike Gruley, you can check out his website at 1visionadvisors.com. 1visionadvisors.com. Check him out on LinkedIn as well, Mike Gruley, Gruley. And then, of course, most of you will be able to know how to get a hold of us. Check us out at www.chtrainingandcoaching.com. So thanks so much, Mike, for joining us. We look forward to just a rich relationship with you and what is before all of us in this coming year.
Well, John and Lisa, thanks so much for having this chat. And I want to say that you guys are an inspiration to me, because it's obvious the time and passion you have for what you do for organizations is non-ending. I can see it. It bleeds out of you. So you are inspirational leaders, and you're inspiring me every day. So thank you. I appreciate it.
The thing that we are so lucky about, this is one of the big perks of our job, is it brings us into relationship with other really amazing human beings. So back at you. Thank you, Mike, for being a beautiful human being.
Oh, well, thank you. Coming from you, that means a lot. So much for the Mutual Admiration Club, right? But I mean what I say. You guys are great.
The world can be a tough place to live in, and we need to give that to each other as often as we can. So, ELS implementer, Mike Gruley, 1Vision Advisors. Thanks again, Mike. We appreciate it.
Great talking with you guys today. Take care.